Hello again, this is Taylor Ellwood, and this is take 3 on this video. Why am I continuing to reshoot this video? Because I'm trying to express something that I'll admit I have some emotional investment in. And that's never an easy thing. So, alright, let's start this over again. Today I want to talk about why it's important to understand how and why magic works. And I'm going to talk about it from a very specific angle, namely the angle of curiosity, because I'm a very curiosity-driven person. How I got into magic was because I had questions that could not be answered by the good book, so to speak. And nobody who was part of that religion could answer those questions for me. And I grew dissatisfied. And then I discovered one day that magic was real. It wasn't just fantasy books, that it actually was real. And I started reading these books, and I started practicing the practices and asking my questions. And along the way, I discovered that I had a fundamental dissatisfaction with most of the books I was reading. And that dissatisfaction was that the authors didn't really do a good job of explaining how and why magic worked. They would just present, here's a spell, or here's this meditation, or here's this or that, and go do it. And if you get a result, great, and if you don't, keep trying. And as I continued my practice of magic, I discovered that more and more people that I would talk to would say, well, all it really matters for me is that I get a result. It doesn't matter how and why magic works, it just matters if I get a result. The problem with that perspective is that it's oxymoronic. And what I mean by that is, if you're a results-driven magician, you still need to understand how and why you got that result. Because if you don't understand how and why you got that result, you won't necessarily get it the next time. A lot of people will be like, well, it doesn't matter, I got the result this time. But what if you need to do it again and you don't get that result? Tough question, right? If you don't understand how and why something works, then you're not going to necessarily get the result every single time. And this is part of what motivated me to start writing about magic from a different perspective than what I was seeing in most of those books. I wanted to explain how and why magic worked. I wanted to show people how to get consistent results, where if they did a magic working, they got the result every time. And if they didn't, here's what you need to do to tweak or change that magical working. That's what motivates my own approach to understanding how and why magic works. And it's why I think we should be curious about it. I don't think that we should have this uncritical acceptance of, if I get a result, great, and if I don't, well, it just didn't work. Well, why didn't it work? What were you doing or not doing that made it not work? What were other variables that were influencing or affecting your magical working? These are questions we should ask. And if we don't ask these questions, I think it makes us poorer magicians. Because what it causes us to do is it causes us to lose out on how we can improve our understanding of magic and what we're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, if you're just doing something for the sake of doing it, you're not doing yourself any favor. Because there is no way for you to possibly improve on something just by doing it and not asking yourself hard and tough questions about why it isn't working or why you aren't getting results. This is what happens when we have uncritical awareness in magic. Our magic as a discipline does not evolve. Magic doesn't improve. The people practicing it don't understand what they're doing, and it becomes one of those things that doesn't in any way, shape, or form really contribute to our lives in a meaningful way. Harsh words, but there it is. When I started practicing magic, I had this curiosity, and a lot of other people didn't have it. And I discovered that over time. I think it was one of the hardest lessons that I learned in regards to magic, was that most of the people I was going to meet that practice magic aren't curious about how and why it works. They just want the results. That's all. That's why they're doing it, purely and simply. I would share things that I was working on, and people would say, that's not real magic, or they'd say, well, why are you doing that? Why are you spending time trying to work with the neurotransmitters? That's silly. Why would you do that kind of work? No, what was silly is that people weren't willing to do that kind of work, that they weren't willing to explore what they could do with magic, that they were just satisfied and complacent with the offerings that were given to them without questioning them. That's what's silly. That lack of critical awareness, that lack of critical thinking that says, that just says, I'm just going to accept this. We're magicians. We're not supposed to just accept things. We're supposed to challenge the very nature of reality. If we don't challenge it within ourselves, if we don't challenge our own attitudes and perspectives, then we deserve what we get. And not surprisingly, what I saw was that time and time again, I would see inconsistent results for the most part. I'd see people who were doing magic and not questioning why it worked or how it worked, and they'd get inconsistent results. They'd get results sometimes, but then other times they wouldn't, or they'd get a result and then it would go away. Now, if you're doing something, if you're taking the time to do something and you're investing your time and effort into it, shouldn't you want it to actually work? Shouldn't you want it to get you consistent results? Shouldn't you want to understand how it's getting you those results? And shouldn't you want to improve upon it and refine it? Well, I want that. I cannot speak for the rest of the people out there who practice magic, but I definitely want that. And it's why I write my books. I'll be honest, I would not have written any of my books if I did not have this curiosity to discover how magic works and what can be done to improve upon it, and what we can do to tweak it and enhance it and optimize it. It's a huge drive in why I practice magic and why I write the books that I write. Because through this understanding of how magic works, we can improve our lives. We can change who we are. We can become better than where we have been. When I look at my magical journey, the first 10 or so years was magic by reaction. Problem came into my life, and I would do a magical working and in order to fix that problem. And hey, it worked some of the time. Sometimes it didn't. Then in 2004, I had this realization that the direction my life was going in was not a good direction, and that I was not on a good road, and I realized I needed to figure something out. I started figuring out my own internal crap. I started doing meditation and internal work. And along the way, I started also really examining how I was approaching magic. I had always had this curiosity. I want to be very clear. I'd always been exploring how magic works and things like that. I've basically been experimenting with magic pretty much from the very beginning when I started practicing. And that necessarily involved asking hard questions and exploring what was working and why not. But I really began to question the results-driven approach of magic. And I began to explore, like, how is it that we get these results? Why do we get these results? Why don't we get certain results? What can we do to troubleshoot magic? What can we do to improve it? What can we do to get consistent results? What can we do to actually design our life through magic proactively, so that instead of reacting to everything and being a messy human being, although we're inevitably going to be messy human beings because that's just the reality of life, but instead of doing that all the time, let's be proactive. Let's start planning our lives by design. Now, I'll be the first to admit, I by no means have everything figured out in my life, but I have a lot more of it figured out by taking this approach, because in exploring how magic could shape my life by design, I necessarily had to examine what could be done to improve it and work with it in a way that would truly carry me forward with the work that I was doing. The other reason why I think it's important to be curious about magic is that magic as a discipline cannot evolve, cannot grow if we are not curious. I think that, if we didn't explore new ways, we'd be stuck with chaos magic. 1970s, 1980s chaos magic. That's where we would be stuck at this point if people weren't continuing to explore how magic works and why we should be curious about it. And don't get me wrong, 1970s, 1980s chaos magic works, but again, it's just all about results. Can I get a result with this? I want more than just being able to get a result. I want something that allows me to understand how and why I got that result, and what I can do to improve upon it, what I can do to tweak it, what I can do to enhance it. and how I can design my life proactively as a result. And that's why I think it's important to understand how and why magic works. It's important to shift away from an uncritical acceptance of results toward a critical awareness of what we're doing that allows us to really enhance what we're doing and improve upon it and get consistent results that actually stick in our lives. Otherwise, why are we doing this? Why are we investing our time and effort into something if we don't want to understand how and why it works? That's what baffles me about the attitude of, well, if I get results, it works, or the attitude that you don't need to really understand the theory of magic. All you need to do is just do this practice. Don't get me wrong, I'm a very practical oriented magician, but I believe that you have to have some understanding of what is informing that practice and how that practice is working. I don't even separate it out as theory and practice, because it's really not. I don't think it's about having an airy-fairy theory about it. It's about understanding the mechanics and principles of what you're doing and how it's getting you where you want to go. If you understand that, you're gold. And if you don't understand that, then you're going to have some challenges at some point. Inevitably, you're going to have a situation where magic isn't working for you. And then you're going to be like, well, guess I'm stuck up the creek without a paddle. I don't want to be that way. I want to figure out why it didn't work. I want to fix it, and I want to get back to where I was going. That's why it's important to understand how and why magic works. That's why when you read any of my books, you're always going to get a fairly detailed explanation of what you're doing and why. And it's why I hope that over time, this uncritical awareness of magic will just go away. I don't have a lot of faith that it will, but I hope that it will. Because we don't need that. We need a detailed exploration of how and why it works so that we can continue to evolve our disciplines. We can continue to do amazing things with magic and make it into something that's more than just something you do just to fix a problem in your life. There's so much more to magic than just fixing problems in your life if you're just willing to take a different and more curious approach to things. Okay, take 3 worked, so great. I like this one much better than the first 2, so I'm going to leave it at that. Thanks for watching, those of you who did. Thanks for commenting if you do, and have a great day.